Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our Johns Manville From Specification to Installation, Unexpected Benefits of VGrooved Mineral Wool webinar. I'm Kelsey Buchanan, and I will be your moderator for today's presentation. Before we dive into introductions, I would like to go over a few logistics. If you have any questions or concerns throughout the webinar, you may submit them at any point during the presentation via the Q&A or chat feature at the bottom of your screen. We will address these questions at the end of the presentation. Additionally, we will follow the webinar today with a survey. This is your opportunity to provide us with feedback on how we did today. Ask any additional questions you may have about the topic of the webinar or suggest new topics for webinars you'd like to hear in the future. We are continuously striving to improve and evolve our webinars, so if you have any comments or suggestions as how we can better accomplish this, or if you feel like we've even missed the mark today, we've encouraged you to fill out the survey. We use your feedback to improve our webinars and provide the information that has the most value to you. This survey is also part of how we deliver the JM experience to you. The JM experience is based on 4 pillars of our JM culture: people, passion, perform, and protect. And we believe it's crucial to make sure we hear, understand, and respond to your needs in order to deliver the best interaction to you. So we offer webinars like this one to help educate the market and offer a tool and resource for you and your business. But we understand that this isn't just a one-way street. Your feedback is a key component to helping us evolve to better meet your needs. Also, we frequently ask whether or not we send out the presentations upon their conclusion. While we do not send out the presentation itself, we do post a recording of it online for you to watch at your leisure or share with your colleagues. So this ensures that you can have the presentation within its full context. So with that, we'll dive into some introductions. Join me as I welcome Jack Bittner and our special guest, David Patrick from Apache Industries. Jack, could you start us off with an introduction?
Thanks, Kelsey. Yes, I'm Jack Bittner. I'm the Senior Product Manager for Industrial High Temperature Installations at Johns Manville. I've been with JM for 18 years, but I have been in the industrial insulation industry for well over 40 years now, and I am based out of Denver, Colorado. David?
Thank you, Jack. I'm David Patrick with Apache Industrial Services. I'm their current insulation subject matter expert and technical advisor for industrial insulation. Over the years, I've 42 of them actually, that I've been involved in different aspects of the industry throughout, and I appreciate Johns Manville having me on today. Thank you.
Thanks, David. All right, so a little bit about what we're going to cover today. Our basic agenda is why insulate, an introduction to mineral wool, the benefits of VGrooved mineral wool, and then some installation details and time trials. So I am going to get into why insulate right away. As we know, there are a lot of reasons you select a particular insulation or you insulate anything in the first place. In a lot of cases, from the owner's perspective, it's for process control, but there's also protection against corrosion under insulation, CUI. But another big item is personnel protection from hot pipes and vessels, and also personnel protection from noise. So acoustical control is depending on the application, like LNG or applications like that, there's a lot of noise, and acoustical is a big consideration. So one of the main reasons to insulate these days, and it's getting bigger and bigger every year, is carbon reduction. Insulation is one of the key items that can cut national resource use and also reduce carbon emissions. And honestly, there's no faster or cheaper way to reduce a carbon footprint than with insulation. Proper insulation allows the equipment to operate more efficiently, and that reduces the carbon emissions from the process and helps the boilers or other power generating equipment run much more efficiently. And equipment that uses less energy from the start, in other words, is not being overworked, that's energy that's not generated in the first place if you're not using it. Most installations today also include some level of recycled content, and insulation will pay for itself year after year after year For the life of the installation, it's not a one-time payback. And we'll see, let's go to the next slide, and we shall see a life-size example of this. If you have a pickup truck, in this case it's an F-150, and you drive it 20,000 miles in a year, over that year, that truck's going to emit 18,000 pounds of CO2. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know, I can't see a pound of CO2, I can't see 18,000 pounds of CO2, so I have to relate it to something that makes more sense. And our objective is to offset the emissions. So what options do we have? Well, the first one is we can plant 360 trees in the first year that pickup truck's driven to account for and make up for the balance out the 18,000 pounds of emission. Or we can replace 310 incandescent light bulbs with LED light bulbs, and that'll take care of that first year. Another third option, which is a lot easier, is we could insulate approximately 8 feet of a bare 4-inch pipe operating at 350 degrees Fahrenheit with just 2 inches of insulation. And there's a lot of this around. And the key thing to remember here is those trees and those 310 light bulbs I just talked about will account for the first year of emissions from this pickup truck. So the next year you got to plant 360 more trees or replace 310 more light bulbs, on and on, year after year after year. But that 8 feet of insulation that you installed on that pipe, you just do that one time, and it continues to pay for itself year after year after year, as long as it's there for the life of the installation. Doing it one time rather than planting 360 trees every year. All right, so let's take another look at carbon reduction. And this will be the cost savings, dollars. Dollars are what I really understand more than anything else. So if we take that same 4-inch steam line running at 350 degrees, same conditions, what we're looking at here in terms of dollars is that 8 feet is putting in your back pocket every year $1,088, $1,100 every year. It's not like you got to re-insulate that 8-inch or that 8 foot of pipe every year, like you got to plant more trees every year. You do it once, it's done right, and it works year after year after year. So what you're looking at here with $1,100 is probably, I don't know, a month or so, and some gas for the car note for that pickup truck, and that's every year. It compounds, which the other options, light bulbs and trees, don't. It's a big deal that everybody doesn't seem to pay much attention to through the years, but now I think with the focus on carbon reduction worldwide, insulation is the low-hanging fruit that people can just actually pick it up off the ground. It's laying on the ground as well as low-hanging. It's not glamorous, it's not pretty, it's not shiny like you know, new windmills or new technology for batteries or what have you. It's been there the whole time, but it is the easiest, quickest way to reduce carbon emissions. And on top of that, it's putting money in your pocket every year. So let's talk about mineral wool right now, an introduction to some of the options. You know, we talk about insulation selection criteria and why you choose one insulation over another. And with mineral wool, there are 4 main advantages over other insulations. The material now is water repellent. All Johns Manville mineral wool insulations, whether it's pipe, board, or pipe and tank wrap, all the products we make are water repellent. I mentioned acoustical control too. Mineral wool is one of the best insulations you can buy and install for acoustical control. It's generally the lower cost of a lot of the various options you might have. It's readily available, and as we'll see when we get into some of the details on the VGrooved, there are significant advantages in shipping and material storage, both in the warehouse and on the job site. So we mentioned water repellency. So what does that mean? Well, there are several ASTM tests that have been in existence for a long time that talk about water vapor absorption and wicking, and they're all part of the mineral wool product ASTM specification. But there really isn't a test for an ASTM for water repellency. So we in the industry use a BS EN test for pipe and for block. So the pipe test is 13472. The block, or the flat, is for 1609. Now, the objective here is to have the materials absorb less than 1 kilogram per square meter of water after the test is completed. And I'm not going to go into the details of these tests because that's kind of a whole nother webinar, and we only have a limited amount of time today. But there is a lot of information of this on these tests on our website. The other great advantage of mineral wool is acoustics. There is an ISO acoustical standard. It's 15665 that measures the acoustical performance of insulation, and it's the system. It's not only the insulation on the pipe, it's the cladding, it's the mass-loaded vinyl, it's whatever else is added. It's a system test. And this test measures and defines performance of 3 different pipe classes, which generally refer to the pipe sizes, pipe diameters. There's class A, B, and C. A's up to a 12-inch pipe, B's up to from 12 to 26, and C is 26 to 40 inch. And there's a more stringent test with stronger requirements now, a class D, which was created by Shell. And all of these tests, like the water repellency tests, are involved. And we do actually have a specific webinar on mineral wool and acoustics on our website at jm.com. And again, for more details, we can please refer to that webinar because there's enough material there for its own webinar. So I won't go into great detail anymore in this one. So Johns Manville offers 4 different types of mineral wool pipe insulation. There's mandrel wound, which we're all familiar with. And then there are 3 VGrooved options. There's one that's VGrooved and preformed with adhesive in the joints. You get it in a box that's round or semi-round if you have half sections. We also have a field form, which actually has the adhesive in the joints, the V's, but it ships flat and it's formed on the job site. And forming it on the job site is a lot easier than you might think. There'll be a video here shortly that'll show you how easy that is. But it's shipped flat, which is great advantages in freight that we'll talk about here shortly. And then we also offer precision cut V-groove, which does not have any adhesive in the grooves, but the grooves are cut, and it is also shipped flat, which gives great advantages on storage, shipping, and job site. So this is a quick comparison chart comparing all 4 of those pipe insulations. And I'll get into a lot more detail on some of these points here in a minute. But all of them meet the ASTM C547 specification for mineral fiber pipe. Thermal performance is equivalent, required there under the 547. All the insulations, mineral wool insulations from Johns Manville today are water repellent. And adhesive in the grooves on 2 of the options for the V-groove, but the greatest advantage of V-grooves you can see in the last 4 points. Ships flat, storage on the job site, fewer trucks, and much more material inside a truck.
Jack, to comment on the different types there, some projects will allow certain materials at certain sizes pipe. And the good thing about it, some will say they would like the mandrel wound on certain size pipes and they're okay with V-groove on other pipes. So the good thing about these materials, they all come from the same place. So it's all a single source type material from Johns Manville so it can meet the total project needs.
That's a great point, David, and I will add to it. This product, all of these 4 options ship from our Phoenix City, Alabama mineral wool factory. And in addition, all of our mineral wool products are made there. So not only do you have the pipe options, you've got board, you've got lamella pipe and tank wrap, and just regular mineral wool pipe and tank wrap that can all ship in mixed trucks from the same factory, and all of them are water repellent. So let's get into more details on the specific benefits of VGrooved pipe insulation. The first one I had on that prior chart was meets ASTM C547 for mineral, which is the ASTM spec for mineral fiber pipe insulations. There's type 2, which is for the molded or the mandrel wound. And there's also type 3 within that spec for VGrooved. And if you look, go down to the max temperature limit and then go down from there, sag, linear shrinkage, flame spread, thermal conductivities. You see the requirements under this material specification are exactly the same. Same max temperature limit, exact same thermal conductivities from 100 degrees to 700 degree mean temperature. The big difference is there's a grade A or a grade B. And the grade B is requires a heat up schedule. In other words, you just can't install it on a pipe, jacket it, and start it up to 500-600 degrees right away. The reason is because of the addition of the adhesives in the V's. You want to heat it up. It's an organic adhesive, so you want to heat it up in a controlled manner. And Johns Manville recommends 100 degrees per hour just for the first startup until you reach the operating temperature. Then you're good to go. The grade A products, which is the molded or the mandrel wound, and the precision cut, again, which ship flat and has no adhesives in the joint, you can install, jacket it, and just fire the unit up right away. That's the only difference between the materials on this specification. So one of the questions we get asked a lot is on VGrooved, do the V's close? Does it really offer the same insulation value as mandrel wound? And of course, it's required under that ASTM spec we just looked at. But the way VGrooved is made today is the equipment is precision controlled, computerized. So you enter in that you want, it's a 10-inch pipe and the insulation's 2-inch thick. And the blades self-adjust to cut the V so that those V's will close on a 10-inch pipe. Now, you can't take that 10-inch, the material cut for 10-inch and put it on a 12-inch pipe. The V's will not close. So you need to order 12-inch pipe, 12 by 2 instead of 10 by 2 if you got a 12-inch pipe. In other words, it's all custom made to fit whatever the pipe diameter is supposed to be. And as evidence that it does work and insulate as well, this is a 6-foot pipe insulated with 3 feet of VGrooved on the left and 3 feet of a mandrel wound on the right. I know it's hard to see those outside surface temperature numbers, but the VGrooved is 142.1 Fahrenheit. And the mandrel wound is 142.0. They're essentially the same. That 0.1 is pretty much noise. So it does perform as required under the ASTM specs. And the V's, you can see, do close or you see hot spots where the V's are. In fact, it looks a little bit cooler on a lot of them. And we don't know exactly why there. The thought is it's a little bit thicker where those V's, the top of the V's. So that might account for the cooler temperature there, but regardless, it performs as it's supposed to perform. When it's cut to fit the pipe, the V's will close.
So Jack, I think people understand the precision cut part, but I've had questions about the V-grooves, whether the glued and the non-glued V-grooves are the same in the heat loss. Does it make a difference?
Yeah, good question, David. It does not make a difference because the V's, whether it's the V's with adhesive or no adhesive, they're the same angle. They close the same. The advantage of the adhesive is that you're essentially putting on preformed pipe by the time you're putting it on a pipe, where the precision cut with no adhesive, you'll wrap it around and tie it off with tape or the wire, and then ultimately the band's on the outside of the jacket. But the V's are the same for either one, so they do close. So I mentioned this a couple times, but now we'll see what it really means. The VGrooved product ships flat. If you have a bunch of cylinders in a box, or half cylinders for the larger pipe sizes, you've got a lot of airspace. Whereas if you can take the same pipe size and insulation thickness, cut V's in it, and ship it flat, you need about half the storage space as you would if it was in the round in a box. And that has great implications on truckloads. This example is, I think it's 4 by 2, 6 by 2, I'm sorry. The top truck is in a box, round, shipped round. You can get 2,520 linear feet in that truck. Whereas if you shipped it flat and just made better use of the space, you get about 60% more in a truck, 4,032 linear feet. And now we're talking freight costs. Number one, it's hard to get trucks and drivers these days. So if you can minimize the number of trucks going to a job site, you're better off. In addition, say you've got, you can cut a truck out of it instead of you ship 2 trucks instead of 3 trucks. The carbon emissions from an 18 or a semi truck with a 50-foot trailer is 223 tons a year of CO2, which is a little more than 12 times that pickup truck we talked about. So that's a heck of a lot of trees and light bulbs. So if you can ship fewer trucks than you would otherwise, you're way ahead of the game on the carbon emissions and the fact that the freight's not cheap these days. So you've just cut a truckload out of it. Huge advantage. And that shipping flat advantage translates to the job site too, with fewer products or smaller footprint on the job. And David, I think, would you mind talking about this slide?
Sure. This is one of those waist tie. I love to have one of these type jobs because it runs pretty long and pretty quick when you're in the production field. But what you want to look at is what's in those two circles. A red circle in the back on the left-hand side, kind of out in front of that pickup truck, is a box after box after box of the mineral wool that's being put on. Looks like maybe 8 by 2 piping there, the pipe closest to the truck. So you've got a lot of boxes to carry. One, there's not very many lineal feet in each one, and you have all those boxes to dispose of. Whenever you look at the VGrooved side that comes flat, if you look way back in the back, there are some packages, look like flat packages. You can barely see them in this picture, but it's a lot less of them with a lot more lineal feet in them. So these guys are rocking right along. You could actually drive along the other side in a forklift with those flat on the forklift, and they could just pull their pieces off and put them on the pipe. But you don't have all that waste because it's a plastic wrap. It compacts easier, which also saves you cleanup time. It saves you money on your dumpster rental and dumpster cost for dumping a dumpster. So it becomes pretty cost effective just by the packaging and the ease of putting it on. And you can see how well it fits the pipe right there on that very top piece that they're putting on. Is close those grooves perfectly.
Yep, thank you, David.
Mhm.
And again, I want to repeat, I've said this once already, but this is important. Johns Manville's your one-stop shop for mineral wool installations, and it's also your one single shipping point. Our Phoenix City factory makes all 4 kinds of pipe insulation, in addition to board and the 2 kinds of industrial mineral wool pipe and tank wraps, lamella and regular pipe and tank wrap, all from the same spot, so you can mix trucks to the job site. All right, a little bit about installation. One of the questions I get a lot is, hey, you know, you can see the flat sections there. We call it the stop sign effect, if you look on the picture on the right. Is that going to translate through once the jacket's put on? Is that going to, you're still going to be able to see those corners from the stop signs? And the answer is no. And where this question comes from is years ago, and this may predate you and I, David, but the one of the standards was for 010 aluminum jacketing, which is a very thin gauge. And I can see that happening with 010 jacketing. However, the standard today is 016 or 024 or even thicker depending on the pipe size. What we're looking at here is these guys are putting 016 stucco embossed on the outside of this VGrooved pipe insulation. You don't see the corners of the stop sign. And this is all in accordance with the new specification we have, which we didn't have years ago, for aluminum jacketing for industrial pipes. And that's ASTM, if somebody wants to look it up, C1729. And in addition, I think I mentioned this already, it specifies thicknesses based on the pipe size and whether it's a rigid or non-rigid insulation underneath it. So it's very, very detailed. And the bottom line is nobody uses 010 anymore, and this isn't a problem today. So mineral wool is one of the easiest products, and you know, David, you can comment on this if you want, but it's, as far as skill level goes and labor, it's one of the easiest products on the market today in the industrial side to install. It doesn't take a lot of labor. It's a lot easier to cut and fabricate, and it's a lot lighter weight than some of the materials. And you'll see these guys, you saw them making, this was a field form where it did have adhesive in the grooves, and you saw that those guys pick it up, just stick it together and put it on the pipe.
Yeah, it's very, very easy to work with just because it's easy to cut. You're not sawing a lot of stuff. You're using a knife mostly to cut out for any protrusions that happen on the pipe. Tees are easy to cut. I think you'll see that in the next video, but you'll see this guy's got one stack there that he's taking the material off of, and that one stack may have 30 feet of pipe covering in it. So that's very, very compact to the job site. And you'll see that on the next slide, I think.
Okay, I'll tee this one up, and David, you can comment too. But these were time trials that we set up and did on the same pipe rack on the, pitting one material against the other. And on the top's preform, or in the top's Manderwound, and the bottom's VGrooved. And these are Apache insulators who, you can see how fast these guys work. They're awesome.
That would be wonderful if they worked that fast. We got some good ones though.
Yeah, I know you.
So you look in the back at the top. So I think you're going to mention that they had, I guess, an advantage because you went out and took some pipe covering out of the box and laid it out nice and neatly for them. And so all they had to do is just grab it off that stack. Whereas in the picture below for the VGrooved piping, it was just in one packet that they just opened that top of that packet and took it out. So there's a little difference in time there because they would have to take it, the top picture, they would have had to take that preformed completely out and get it lined out first before they begin that installation. So really, I think the timing that the VGrooved would have probably beat them. That said, you can kind of see if you would have put those in a box, you'd have had several different things packed up over there, taking up room, and the footprint in the field is what matters. These guys are in a nice warehouse area that they don't worry about other crafts. But if you're in a field, that's your main concern, is putting a lot of material out there. And sometimes contractors don't allow you to put a lot of material in the actual work area point of use. So it's become kind of a norm now that you can only take out a day's work out there. So you can see what it causes in a traffic area, safety area, for that kind of thing. So I think there's a big advantage in the footprint it takes up in the field.
And David, you are right. I did give those guys on the top a advantage taking them out of the boxes. There would have been probably two and a half boxes of that mangrowound material there that those guys would have had to open, take out of the box, and install on this pipe. So they had an unfair advantage in this time trial. VGrooved faster. So let's talk about, what else can you do with mineral wool, and what are some of the limitations of mineral wool? One of the options is a hybrid system, and this is to account for one of the limitations that mineral wool has, and this is at elevated temperatures due to the fact that mineral wool has a binder. All fibrous materials have binders, and the binder is what holds the fibers together and gives them their loft. In other words, keeps them, helps them in high vibration areas to stay in place. However, the binder is organic, and in all mineral wools, binder burnout can begin between 400 and 450 degrees F. And you can see that happening on the picture on the right side there, where the material's changing color. You've got green on the outside, then browns, and then gray. Gray is no binder. The material, when we fiberize it, if we didn't put binder on it, it is that color gray. So you can see the thermal gradient through the insulation here. And if there was a lot of vibration, over time, the fibers that where the binder has oxidized, they could tend to settle on the bottom just due to gravity and vibration. Again, it's over time, but still, you don't want to be replacing insulation every 5 or 8 years. So the binder burnout is a limitation with mineral wool materials. And David, I'm looking at this picture and I see an installation error. You pick it up?
Yeah, you certainly have. Well, there's a couple of them actually, but one of the biggest ones, and all specifications call for you to alternate the seams between layers. So you see those are lined up perfectly. So there's a heat sink right there out to the outer layer, is why some of it's starting to oxidize and burn. And also the way it's pulled up into the 90, it's not really formed to a 90. It's kind of, I'm not sure what you would call that, but you can tell it's now within the inner layer for the outer layer on that side, on the left side. So that was an completely incorrect application.
Yeah, and I will point out this, I don't know where this picture came from, but I'm certain it's not an Apache job.
It is not one of ours.
This is an old one. Yeah, no, I know you guys wouldn't do this. So, yeah, that's it. All right. So what do? We did a study where we did 2 designs, an A and a B. An A was mineral wool insulation installed on a pipe with just regular 016 jacketing like we do every day. And this was going to be on a hot pipe where there would be some binder burnout on the inner surface of the product. So let's say you had an application where there was going to be vibration, but you wanted to use or needed to use mineral wool for some reason. How do you account for that binder burnout and try to offset it? One of the ways might be to install on the against the pipe a flexible high temperature blanket. And in this case, this was a hydrophobic blanket. and then the mineral wool is installed on the outside of it with the jacketing. And on the next slide, you'll see the results. So this is mineral wool only, and you can see the binder burnout. And this is mineral wool with the high temperature blanket on the inside. And you look at that interface temperature between the blanket and the mineral wool, and you don't see binder burnout. There's a little bit of discoloration just coming, but it's nothing like the picture on the left. So there's a couple of advantages here. Number one, you're using mineral wool where it makes the most sense. You're getting acoustical benefits. It's insulated such that you won't see the binder burnout. In addition, by using a hybrid system with one of the high temperature blankets on the inside, those are highly efficient insulations. So you combine that with mineral wool. If you've got areas where the pipes are too close together or otherwise some sort of a space limitation, this will ultimately reduce the overall thickness profile of that insulated pipe by using a hybrid system.
That reduces overall thickness profile, Jack. That has a lot to do with the accessory materials, the banding for either the material and or the metal jacketing. And sometimes if you're looking at metal jacketing that's type 316 stainless steel, that's a high cost that it's reducing that total square footage because of that overall thickness profile can save money.
Yeah, excellent point, David, and you're 100% right on that. You really are. That adds up. So what are some of the key takeaways from today? Again, this is a repeat slide, but it's a side-by-side comparison of all 4 pipe insulation options in mineral wool that we offer today. The manual wound and then the 3 options for the V-cut. And you'll again see all of them are included in the ASTM specification C547 for mineral fiber pipe. And all of them have the same requirements. The only difference, again, is the heat up schedule on the material with the adhesives in the joints. Otherwise, the performance is the same once it's installed, but the advantage of the V-Grooved is before it's installed, and that's shipping it flat, requiring less storage on the job site and in the warehouse, and fewer trucks per jobs on the roads. Certainly it actually eliminates the carbon emissions. If you're not running the truck, it's not emitting the carbon. Kelsey, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. I wanted to take a few minutes to go through some additional resources we have for you as well. First and foremost, we maintain all of our informational resources on an online portal called The Source. This is where you'll have free access to our recorded webinars like this one, blogs, product documents, and specifications, as well as training and various tools. Our blog topics hit on targeted technical information, the latest news in the industry, and specific details that are really critical to successful installation system design and operation. We strive to make that content there as rich and relevant as possible so that it better serves you and the information that you're looking for and that you need. There's also a full library of helpful documentation on The Source. So there you'll find technical bulletins, white papers, and product application guides. And again, on jm.com, there's also any data sheets or safety sheets that you might be interested in learning more about the mineral wool options that we talked about today. Also, because today's conversation was so great, let's keep it going. Our installation LinkedIn page features the latest news and insights, and our Installation Intel Twitter account provides an industry-wide look at current trends and news. And we passed up before, and I wanted to also make a note of our technical team and our technical support roster. They are truly the best in the business. I'll leave this up for just a couple more seconds so you can kind of grab that number. But I urge you to reach out to them at any time. We're always looking for a really good, tough question, something that really stumps these guys. So give it a try and give them a call if you really ever need any more information, or if you have have a question for us. As a reminder, recording of today's webinar will be posted on the source in the next couple days when it's live. So we'll send you a link for direct access, as I'm seeing some questions come in about that. We also have an upcoming event, which is our Engineer Advisory Council, which we're really excited about. It is November 8th through the 9th of this year in Calgary, Alberta. It's going to be a half-day discussion on evolutions in the market, pain points to have addressed, and the role of insulation on decarbonization. Jack touched on that a little bit in today's webinar, but it's such an important topic that we're going to dive into a little bit more. So you can certainly scan that QR code again for any information regarding that upcoming event. And as a reminder for anyone who attended today, you will receive a certificate of completion after the webinar that may be submitted for professional development hours. This will be sent to you via email and should be in your inbox next week. And so with that, let's take some questions. I have a couple questions coming in for either you, Jack, or David. The first one, what is the difference between Mineral Wool 1200 Field Form and Mineral 1200 Precision Cut?
I'll take this one, David. Field form is shipped flat, but it also has adhesives in the grooves. So you can form it on the job site as soon as you take it out of the package, and it will fit around the pipe in the round. Precision cut is shipped flat, V-grooves, but no adhesive. So you install it on the pipe and tie it on with however you would, whether it's wire, bands, tape, and then put the jacket and the bands on it as well. The other difference is the material with adhesive in the grooves, the field form, will require a heat up schedule if it's going to see elevated temperatures above 450 degrees. And the product, the precision cut, without adhesives in the grooves, can be fired up right away. There is no requirement for a heat up schedule.
All right, thanks, Jack. And then looking at thermal performance, do you see heat loss in the grooves?
No, if you remember that one slide where we showed the V-groove compared to the mandrel wound, this precision cut, the way the products are made today for V-groove, takes away all that problem where the, years and years ago, when you didn't have the ability to have the saw blades move based on the pipe size, maybe it was just two different angles. They may or may not have closed if it wasn't on the right pipe size. Now it's cut to order. If you order a 10 by 2, the product you get will only fit that 10-inch pipe. It won't fit an 8, won't fit a 12. If you need 12, you got to order 12. It's all precision cut to order today.
Awesome. Another question coming in around CUI limits, and specifically around the CUI limits with the use of mineral wool. Does V-groove or other mineral wool options hold up?
There's the test that is really the most common for CUI today is ASTM C1617. And that's pretty much the only one that also tests on carbon steel, which probably 90–95% of the pipes that insulation goes on are carbon steel. So that's the one we refer to today. The mineral wool products do pass at less than 5 parts per million for mass loss corrosion rate. And for details on that, that's a whole nother webinar too. However, there are some insulations like for the corrosion inhibitor calcium silicates and perlites that have a mass loss corrosion rate of less than 0, which is DI water. So it all depends. We talked about the selection criteria. What's most important for the specific application. If there was one insulation that would do it all, believe me, we wouldn't make 4 or 5 of them at Johns Manville. We would have one big factory and we'd make one type of insulation, but they all have their place. And it depends on, the top considerations you have as an engineer on your specific application. If acoustics are most important you're going to want to choose mineral wool, for example. So it all depends.
All right, great. And then another question around specific pipe diameters. Is the V-grooved insulation fabricated for a specific pipe diameter, or can it be used on different diameters?
No, I think I mentioned a couple times already today that the V-groove insulation is specifically manufactured for a specific pipe size. It will not fit anything except what it was manufactured to. 10-inch will only fit 10-inch.
And then does JM offer the profile cut mineral wool pipe?
We do not, and that's a good question, because you can only put V's in a board down to a certain pipe size. Otherwise, you're cutting the V's all the way through, where you're going to have the V's will be so tight on the inside diameter that you'll end up reducing the insulation thickness. So the bottom line there is, the long way around, is we V-groove down to a 3-inch pipe size, and below a 3-inch pipe size, some folks profile cut on a CNC cutter, but at Johns Manville, we offer mandrel wound for pipe sizes less than 3 inches.
Awesome. It looks like we have an kind of an installation question come through. So maybe David, you could kind of help break this one down a little bit. It's asking how do you get like a flat bundle up the pipe rack?
Yes, most of the time we still get flat bundles of different types of materials other than a V-groove. So our boxes, they're the same size, large boxes that have to get pulled up into a pipe rack or onto a vessel or landing. We normally do that with like a well pulley and rope, which you rope off the area, but you can use a cargo type net or some approved strapping to make sure it's secure, and then have someone pull it up and you take it off and put it in there. So the difference being is if you take this one bundle that may have 30 feet on it versus a 15 to 20 to 25 boxes, there's a whole lot less that you have to get up by that way to get to your spot to work. And when you get to that spot, if it's in a rack and you have piping in a rack that's close together, when you're trying to put in rigid pipe covering, you have to put it in and turn it around to get it to go through. Sometimes you can't just shove it down in its profile through the two pipes in the rack. So it being V-grooved and formed out there, you can do it as you go around and work it better around those pipes. So, and something I meant to mention when we were back on the slide where they were installing that, both kinds, mineral wool gives a little bit. So wherever you have a T or cap or come up to a flange, all those wells, when you're in a rigid pipe covering of any kind, you have to dig that out for it to sit correctly and close up on the pipe. And mineral wool is forgiving enough that it doesn't have to do that, and it doesn't lose any thermal value when you do it. So it makes it easier to work with.
Great. Well, those are all the questions I have. Jack, David, any last thoughts?
David,
I
I
don't
want
have
to
any.
thank you for, sorry, I didn't mean to
That's all
talk over you, David. I want to thank you for taking the time to help us and join us on this webinar. The contractor's perspective is always important. We want to design products with the specific engineering needs and performance needs in mind, but we also want products that benefit the contractor and don't make their lives any harder than it needs to be already. And your comments here were very helpful to us. I thank you for taking the time to join us.
And thank you, Jack and JM, for having me. I think it's a great thing that manufacturers look at what they can do to make installation of things quicker, easier for the craftsman. The safety has us loaded down nowadays for a good reason. It keeps us safe, but it slows us down. If you ever see a picture of a guy that's got double lanyards on and working off yo-yos or whatever with all his tool pouch on and FRCs on, it's a tough craft to be in these days, but the guys are doing the best they can. So the help from the manufacturers of how they create and engineer materials to be able to put on easily is a big help in the industry, and we appreciate it.
Thank you both so much, and thank you for everyone attending today. We really hope you found the information useful and relevant. If you do have any questions, as I mentioned, please don't hesitate to reach out. As I said before, our technical team is always there standing by to help address any questions that you have. And with that, we hope everyone takes care and enjoys the rest of your week. Thanks, everyone.